and pony.
Right.
We're out doing the dog and pony selling a picture. And you get kind of, sometimes you get what you feel is slightly ambushed by somebody who's really got an agenda, and that's sort of, I think, that's my opinion of what happened to me the other day. The last thing I like to watch is entertainers or actors get political. It's just something I can't stand watching. So having said that, no, I was kind of asked to put it in context somehow with this movie. You know, my personal feeling is that there's a big difference between Fantasyland and reality. Fantasyland is what we do. You're either writing something, writing a song, writing a book, doing a movie, doing a television show. That's Fantasyland. And that's where that stuff belongs. In reality, when we're dealing with things like terrorism and whatnot, we're all going to have different opinions on how to do it, how to deal with it. Yeah. Mine happens to be that I think there's a very strong reason Founding Fathers had for the Second Amendment, and that is that no government ever hasn't had to fight its own people, and its own people hasn't had to fight its own government. We had our Civil War. If that Second Amendment hadn't been there, those people would not have had the opportunity to do what they considered was defending their life, their way, their style of living. So I agree with that. I think that's an important part of our existence, and it's basically that simple.
I was just looking in the New York Times this morning, and the guy interviewed many people from the Midwest and from the West about San Bernardino. Mm-hmm. And the basic conclusion is that there's everybody out there has this feeling of anxiety about when's the next one.
So how you connect the dots?
I think that there's a feeling about shootings and violence different now in 2015 than it was in the mid-90s.
Oh, sure. It's not the 90s.
But Quentin's doing the same game, more or less.
Quentin does what he does. Yeah, Quentin's, he's like painting a picture. He's like writing a story, or he's like a filmmaker. Right. No, I think that to mix and match reality with fantasy is something I don't understand, but that's just me. Yeah. I think that we should understand the difference. I think that, to mix today's politics with, for instance, in this case, a tale about, a fictional tale about just right after the Civil War.
I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about ground level, water table, a feeling that's in people's bones that this New York Times piece was talking about. People are genuinely, between Paris and San Bernardino, there's this thing that sudden violence as a normal day-to-day aspect coming from the gun culture, coming from everything else. It's a different vibe,
I don't understand the concepts of conversation of the gun culture. We've lived with guns since, the 7th century or something? I don't know.
We all know that right now, guns is a trope. It's it's not a trope, it's a totem, it's a metaphor that disenfranchised white guys need. It makes them feel good because they're being...
You can say what you want. I don't agree with that. So it's not my thing.
But it's statistically...
Well, you can look. If you think gun control or something like that is going to change a terrorist point of view, I think you're out of your mind. I think anybody is. I think it's absolutely insane. The problem we're having right now is that we don't have the concepts of how to turn it around and say, you may think you've got me worried about what you're going to do. Dude, you're about to find out what I'm going to do. And that's going to worry you a lot more. And that's what we need. That will change the concept of gun culture, as you call it, to something of reality, which is, if I'm a hockey team and I got a guy bearing down on me as a goaltender, I'm not concerned about what he's going to do. I'm going to make him concerned about what I'm going to do.
I guess Obama's point was that the guys who are on the no-fly list because of terrorist connections, can get a gun pretty easily.
They can also make a bomb pretty easily.
Yeah.
So what? They can also get knives and stab you. What are you going to do about that? They can get cars and run you over with them. What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about that?
They didn't kill the people in San Bernardino.
Oh, but they've killed others that way. Haven't they?
Killed them over in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you going to do? Outlaw everything? That isn't the answer.
Just put some controls.
Put some controls. What? So the people who want to defend themselves can't?
No, not so you can't, just so the idiots can't get a hold of them. That's
Do
all.
you really believe they're not going to? Are you serious about that?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah,
seriously?
whatever.
What good will that? Oh my God! You and I just disagree.
Okay.
You and I just disagree. I understand that you think that you can control the behavior of people that are dead set on taking your way of life away from you. I think you can control that.
No,
and there's only one thing you can do with that. So say, no, dude, that's not going to happen. That's just not going to
Very nice speaking
happen.
with you.
Good talking with you.
So, honestly, he didn't want to hear his point of view. He didn't want to hear what he had to say. All right, anyway, hold on. We've got Sheriff Clark gets pissed at a racist Don Lemon, scolds liberal scumbag. This is a true series, but I love Sheriff Clark. Oh my God, I love this man. I wish I could vote for him here in San Antonio. I wish he'd come here and be my sheriff. I wish he would.
Very much for that horrific day. Spoke to the heads of the sheriff department, the police department, and the state police down there, and they told us how their hearts were reeling. Their message is peace and coming together in the country. What's your message?
You don't believe that for 1 minute, do you?
That their message is?
Yeah.
That's what they said to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe them. Of
Any
course I believe them
protests
when they say-
over the deaths of these cops today in Baton Rouge?
I don't know that.
Any riots or protests over the police officers in Dallas, Texas?
What are you asking?
It's a pretty simple question.
I asked you what's your message to the people. Their message is one of peace. What is your message?
My message has been clear from day one 2 years ago. This anti-cop sentiment from this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter has fueled this rage against the American police officer. I predicted this 2 years ago. So what I want to know,
Okay, Sheriff.
do I want to
With all
know?
due respect, do you know that this was because of that?
Yes, I do.
As a law enforcement officer?
I've been watching this for 2 years. I predicted this. This anti-police rhetoric sweeping the country has turned out some hateful things inside of people that are now playing themselves out on the American police officer. I want to know, with all of the black-on-black violence in the United States of America, by the way, when the tragedies happened in Louisiana and Minnesota, you know that 21 black people were murdered across the United States? Was there any reporting on
There was a
that?
black officer who was killed today, but let's...
Was there any reporting on that?
Sheriff, please, let's just keep the volume down. So, I understand, listen,
I'm looking at 3 dead cops this week, and I'm looking at 5 last year. You trying to tell me to keep it down?
Please, we can keep it civil. So, because with the message to people at home, I'm sure you want is one of civility.
I wish, Don, I wish you
would
had
like to
that
have-
message
I would like
of
to
civility
have a conversation
toward
with
this
you.
hateful ideology, these purveyors
You
of
don't know
hate.
what my message is.
That's
what I
what
want
they
to say
do.
to you is,
These
Will you
people
let me
preach
finish? Are you gonna say a word?
and virtue
we'll be right
in
back.
the name
We're
of
going to go to break,
hate.
and we'll be right back. All I'm going to do is have a conversation. I can't have a conversation with you if we're both talking at the same time. What it sounds like to me is that you're accusing me of violence and supporting a narrative that I'm not necessarily in support of. And if that's what you're accusing me of violence, then you can leave. That's not true. I don't support violence of any type against police officers, against anyone. So if you're accusing me of that, then you're welcome to leave. But if you want to have a conversation, I am more than willing to welcome a conversation with you. I don't disagree with you about there's a narrative across the country that could be harming police officers. But we don't know right now, as someone who's in law enforcement, if that was the actual cause of it. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
No.
Go on.
I ask a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist? I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you...
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter run by George Soros. Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. A Nazi who killed people because of their religion.
know this. there is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None. Even
You'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
that law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban
There is
settings.
data that's...
There is not data.
There's no data to support that. Actually, more per capita, more white people are killed by police officers because they behave like fucking idiots and they're trying to kill a cop than black people.
No, the president spoke about it. Cedric Alexander, who
The
is a law
president has
enforcement
been
officer.
lying about it. He said it again the other day when he said black males are 2 times more likely to be shot by a law enforcement officer than white males. Don, that is a lie.
That is not a lie.
It is a
The
lie.
yeah.
Show me.
The research.
Show
that-
me.
The research
Show
that
it to me
we
then.
have from the Washington Post. That
The Washington
Associated
Post
Study
debunked
is also
that nonsense.
There's also research.
He also said
Sheriff,
this time.
there's also research.
He
from
continues.
A Harvard professor that also showed that black people are treated more aggressively by police officers.
No, you are
And other
wrong in your interpretation of that Harvard study because I read the study. That's not what he said. He said he was surprised to find
He was surprised to find that in shootings, of the most severe in shootings, that he found no evidence that there was a difference. Also, it should be noted that that study was a very small sampling of police departments across the country. Many people did not find it credible, but it is also interesting that in that research, he
now he doesn't want
found
to use it
that blacks were
because it's
treated
uncredible
differently when
because
it came
he
to
freaking called him out
aggressive
on his
policing,
bullshit.
but for the
He
most
lied.
egregious shootings, he found no difference. That's what that study showed.
Well, based on what? Just generally? Are we talking about high crime areas?
Talking about
Are we talking about
police
police
departments
officers
across-
being under attack? Because let's go back to where this whole thing started in Ferguson, Missouri.
Sure.
The
Sure.
lie
With all
was
due
hands up,
respect, you're
don't
lumping
shoot.
a whole bunch of things into one. If we
Okay.
can do one specific
That's
thing
where
in
this
particular,
whole phony
then
movement
we'll get to
started.
it.
It started out as hands
You're
up,
talking
don't
about
shoot.
Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Okay. So if you want to, if you would need to speak to someone who is a member of Black Lives Matter about whether they have perpetrated a fraud on the American people. That's up to Black Lives Matter.
Okay, now I want to tell you, this thing goes on and on and on, but y'all get the point. The sheriff ain't having it. He's not listening to the bullshit and the rhetoric, and pretty much the sheriff he goes into this.
More people going to prison. This stuff has already been debunked.
Sure. That's a different conversation.
Every
One that
time,
many people
every
don't-
time
and one that
you
many-
don't have a response to something I say, you say
It's not that I don't have a response to you, is that we're having two different conversations. I'm asking the questions here, you're answering the questions by asking questions about some other subject that we're not
That's
discussing.
not true.
We're
That
talking
is
about
not a
this
conversation.
hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter. When you said you're not a member, you can't be a member. It's not an organization.
That's
There's no
what
structure.
that's what
It
you're
is
talking
an
about. Listen,
ideology,
and
and it is a
and I
hateful
understand that you're very.
ideology.
I understand it's a very.
These-
Hateful ideology, he said. Hateful ideology. So anyway, look, I know he's retired, but damn, I love that dude. Hold on, I got one more. Clinton compares Trump to Weinstein. Now this is what, since now he's retired, Sheriff Clark has to say on live TV.
Hillary Clinton falsely claiming Donald Trump is an admitted sex assaulter. I got to say that again. Admitted sex assaulter as she compares him to Harvey Weinstein, but claims against Bill, well, they're clearly in the past. Okay, I'm a little confused here. Here she is saying this.
This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated anywhere, whether it's in entertainment, politics. After all, we have someone admitting to being a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office. There has to be a recognition that we must stand against this kind of, action that is so sexist and misogynistic.
And this depends upon women coming forward and having the courage to come forward.
Right.
And yet, in your book, women were staged by Trump attacking your husband, and you kind of dismiss them. Was that the right thing to do? Are you sure about that?
Well, yes, because that had all been litigated. I mean, that was the subject of a huge, investigation, as you might recall, in the late 90s. And there were conclusions drawn, and that was clearly in the past.
You know who we need to bring in for this? Former Milwaukee County Sheriff and Senior Advisor